What is up, everybody? Aka the Coot here again, and today we're showing you my favorite build that I have out of the bunch right now, and that is my ranged fire. I call him a mage barbarian. He does a lot of distance DPS and really isn't designed to be one of those characters that goes in and just does a bunch of damage in the midst of a bunch of enemies. So I'm doing at least 10 million crits, up to 20 million crits away from everything, not getting involved in the actual fight. So a great support build for a barbarian if you're looking for something a little different. And I can't wait to show off the gear that I have for this guy. I found myself getting a lot of gear on a different character and stack it up, but we'll get to that in just a second. First move I use to generate my fury is weapon throw. I use balanced weapon because it generates more fury, and that's exactly what you're going to be using this for. The bulk of your damage is going to be coming from seismic slam, which slams ground and does fire damage for a really long distance. 45 yards is pretty big, and I'll show this at the end. Unlike the other videos, I'll give you guys a little idea of what happens with this guy so you can actually see it in action. I use Wrath of the Berserker with Ariat's Wail. This deals 3,400 weapon damage as fire to all enemies within 15 yards. So a little extra fire damage, and you're going to see why I'm so adamant about stacking fire damage here in a second on my build. I use Warcry with Charge because this gives you the most fury you can get, and that keeps it so it pretty much actually just refills your whole fury bar. So you get to do all your moves a whole other time again there. I use Call of the Ancients with Surprise Fire. So this sends them all out and they do fire damage now. And I also use Avalanche with Volcano, which is a decent range move because you can actually put this away from you a good distance, unlike, I believe it's Earthquake, which you have to be like right underneath everybody to do that. And although this character does have the ability to survive a lot of situations, which I'll show you in the gameplay video that I plan on putting up after this video, but I don't want to be in that situation, so I use this and it does 4,400 weapon damage from a good ways away. These are interchangeable. Whatever you feel is necessary to keep you alive or help you with your Wrath is basically what I consider the passives for this build to be. So Unforgiving, you no longer degenerate fury. I like to be constantly getting fury instead of losing it because that was the main thing I didn't like about Barbarians, was I always felt like I was in a fight for fury, and it's just such a pain in the ass. Nothing's worse than wanting to hit something and having to auto attack it for half an hour to get it back. Each point of fury you spend heals you. You're going to be spending a lot of fury, so you're going to be getting a lot of heals out of that. Animosity, increase all fury generation. I mean, that's just pretty self-explanatory. I want more fury. And since I used 2 out of the 3 of these moves, I figured it would be pretty advantageous to have the cooldowns reduced on them. And surprisingly enough, Call of the Ancients and Wrath of the Berserker being up are super helpful. Surprise! Anyways, let's look at the inventory. What are we rocking on this guy to make it to where I want to be a ranged fire barbarian? Well, I got Indariel's Visage, which gives me 19% fire damage. And hell with all the other stats on this stuff. Let's just pay attention to what we got for fire damage real quick. I got Rondell's Locket, which gives me 20% more fire damage. Once again, all the other stats around there aren't that bad. I got this piece of junk, but it keeps me alive. Has a little extra toughness on it, so we're doing that. Anyways, I got a Cinder Coat. I only 2-socketed it because I'm lazy, but it has 20% extra fire damage on it. My bracers have 20% extra fire damage on it. My gloves have 18% extra fire damage on it. I got 2 rings because I have an SOJ that I've been trying to roll, so unfortunately there's no fire damage on there, but the toughness helps out a bunch from these rings. It gets me a little more survivability in some situations. And I also use that same idea with my Blackthorn set. I use these 2 just because it increases damage against elites, and I like that kind of thing. Normally I'd have a Ring of Grandeur on here, but I have that on a different character and don't feel like switching it. Anyways, back into the fire damage. I have the Burning Axe of Sancus that I got, which made me finally want to show this build off because it gives me 19% extra fire damage. And what complements fire damage? More fire damage. That's right. Devastator. Got 19 extra fire damage on that. So that puts me added up at like around 120, 140. I'm not really entirely sure. Fire damage. So I'm putting up some pretty heavy DPS solely based on the fire damage, and as you can see, my sheet damage reads 264. That's silly and not correct at all. I'm doing a lot more damage than that, so that's just something to keep in mind when you're building a character. You can stack enough damage to where that little number right there means very, very little. And my favorite piece on this guy was the piece that I just most recently discovered, and that is my belt, which is Razor's Strop, and makes it so when I pick up a health globe, it does 311% weapon damage to enemies within 20 yards, which is a pretty big radius, but this thing it's when there's health clubs around, it makes me hit things for about 2 to 3 million, which is a lot of fun to watch because I actually have been tinkering around with a orb build with this guy, so I can get as many orbs on the ground as I can, so I'm doing that extra fire damage. So either way, we'll show you real quick what it looks like when I'm actually doing moves. Everything's going to be based on the weapon throw, and you're going to get a lot of the ground slam, which reaches, as you can see, a real good distance. So that puts up some serious damage right there, and you add in all the other stuff, and what's cooler than that? Just fire everywhere. Plus you're a big fiery guy. Plus these guys are all fiery, and she doesn't care. She doesn't want to be a part of the video. Screw her. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Can't wait to put up the gameplay so you guys can see this in action, and leave comments, suggestions, any other builds you'd like to see. I'd be more than happy to do them. And stay tuned for the wizard build, because that's taking me forever because I hate them. Thanks for watching.